Good. So before I introduce you to the logistics, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of logistics. I'm going to talk a little bit about Blackboard and then a little bit about the syllabus. Let me get your name first. Destiny. Last name? Perez. Perez? Very good. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so you've also, those who just arrived, please take out your phone and send me an email. This is my email over here. And in the subject line, you put your first name and your last name so that I can email you whenever I want to. Send it from the email that you use, not the email that you don't use. All right, so in this class, we will be doing everything via Blackboard. I mean, except when I'm here, obviously. It's a hybrid class, right? So let me tell you a little bit about Blackboard, which we'll be using. So I've simplified it in just 4 tabs, right? The first tab is home. That's where all the announcements are. This is where I will be posting the weekly homework, right? Because you'll get a little confused because we only see each other once a week. So every day after class, I will post what's due next time. So make sure you check the announcements regularly for the homework and also other things that I'm telling you so we can stay in touch during the week that we're not together. The second tab is the syllabus. So hopefully you've already gotten that, you've already printed it. The third tab is assignments and grades. So this is a link to the Google Drive where you will be handing in your assignments. The way I want you to do it is to, this is very important, make sure any assignment you do in this class, you first save in a folder on your desktop for the whole semester, because I have a horror story to tell you about this really bright student who thought she was handing in all the assignments and I had received nothing by the end of the semester. She had to redo everything. So, and she still hasn't caught up. So I think she gave up, which is understandable. So make sure you save everything because you never know what happens, right? So that way you have your proof that you did the work. So you will, before you drag it, right, from the desktop into the drive, I want you to save it as a PDF, okay? So I need a PDF version of your assignment. So in the drive, you will see different folders, one for each assignment, and I'll tell you more about that in a bit. Also in the drive is the grades only of the exam. Okay, so you can keep track how you're doing on the test that way. Good. Now, here's a sort of unusual detail about our Google Drive. As you'll notice pretty soon, pretty quickly, is that you can also see everybody else's assignment as you're handing in your assignment, which is why I'm going to ask you now to make me a pledge on your honor, especially when it comes to the tests, right? That you will abstain from even glancing at someone else's test or assignment. You will do your own work out of respect for yourself, for the person you are tempted to cheat on, and for respect for me, right? So I want to see all the hands of those.
I have a massive ego, so I'd never look at anyone else's.
Very good. Okay. The pledges, please. Everyone's hand. I don't see your hand. Okay. Very good. This is your pledge. Now, some people do sometimes get tempted. 2 things to dissuade you, right? Number 1, if you get to the point where you're tempted to cheat, email me and ask for an extension, right?
Yeah.
That's better.
We do that.
Yeah.
You would think we're tempted to cheat. You know, we would think badly of us.
That's true. No. You can, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know what's in your head, right?
Okay.
So it's better you email me and we work together than you do this dubious thing that will mark that will stain your honor, right? Second thing, I'm very good at catching cheaters. I don't know, I have this 6th sense or whatever, 7th, I don't know. And I always catch them. It's unbelievable. I didn't know I had this talent. So you will get caught if you do cheat. And once you're caught, you will lose all the points. You will not be able to make anything up. So if it's a test, that's like 15 points that just left your report card, right? So, so that's the other incentive, right? Not to cheat. So please don't cheat. Make it easy for all of us. I don't want to change my system. It's very easy to grade off of Google Drive. So I want to keep it like that. Okay. So, and then the last tab is the recorded lectures. Every lecture, as you can see, is going to be recorded. I'm lopsided on this. I'll have to fix that. Yeah, every lecture is recorded. So if you do end up missing class because of different reasons, you can always go to the click on that tab, it brings you to our playlist, and boom, you can catch up on the lectures. You can't catch up the work necessarily, I mean the small work, you can catch up the tests, but you can't necessarily catch up the detailed work we do, but you can certainly catch up on the content. Any questions on this little introduction to Blackboard? Anybody? Okay, good. All right, let's get into the syllabus. Okay, so office hours after class, right? Anytime you want to talk, stay. I'm here at time. Or we'll go in the hall or something. Yeah, you're welcome to that. If you want to talk about anything, the material or how the material is impacting you or your life in general, you can always stay and talk to me about anything.
Very excited about it.
Good. Okay, let me give you an overview of what we'll do. This is kind of like, yeah, go ahead.
All classes are in person?
No, exactly, because hybrid, right? So I'm going to tell you which ones are not in person, which one. But every week we come, yes, like this.
And attendance is...
Yes, then you will be, yeah. I mean, the attendance is part of your participation grade, as you'll see. So you need to come. So yeah, this is a good question. I've noticed it's a little, if you're not a regular type of, if you're kind of not very disciplined as a student, it's harder the once a week than the twice a week, I've noticed, right? So it's easy to fall by the wayside. So I really, really want to push that everybody, you just make the commitment to come for sure on Thursdays. Otherwise, you will really fall behind, right? So it's very important. The rest is online, but this meeting is always in person on Thursdays at this time, every Thursday. Make sense? Okay, good. All right, overview of the class. So I used to teach this class kind of like general philosophy of religion, but I noticed as I was reading students' essays, so many students were stumbling on one particular issue, which was the problem of evil, right? The question in general is if God exists, why did I have to go through this? If God exists, why did my grandmother die when I needed her most? If God exists, why did my father just lose his job? If God exists, why is my boyfriend cheating on me, right? This was the struggle that came, and people would just lose their faith over this, over the problem of evil. They'd be like, well, he can't exist. I can't accept a God who would allow this, right? So I noticed students stumbling over and over again on the same problem. And so I decided I'm going to make a whole class on this, right? That way you have the opportunity to really think through this issue. And we're going to look at 7 different authors who actually have themselves experienced tremendous suffering and how they kind of came through and what conclusions they came to after the suffering. Some of them rejected God, right? Somebody like Nietzsche that we're going to study is going to be like, screw this.
He got syphilis too. So
right, exactly. Like he had reason to complain. But some of them really came up with beautiful interpretations of their own suffering, right? So this is also very interesting to see how different philosophers thought through or reflected upon their suffering in connection to God and came up with very different answers, right? We're going to see. So it's very interesting to it. So I'm hoping all of you will find one philosopher that will resonate with you, that you can in a way become a disciple of, right? This is the goal of the class, is not to make you disciple of me, but to make you disciples of these guys, these 4, there's one woman,
and a woman, Simone Weil.
of these guys and gals, right? 1 woman and 6 men, right? And I'm hoping you will find in them a master, perhaps, right? So, so these are the people we will be encountering. So we'll start with a very ancient text, actually, found in the Hebrew Bible. It was written probably around 2000 or 3000 BC by Moses, whom some of you know, maybe you know if you're familiar with the biblical text. So the book of Job is actually an extremely interesting book. It's a very difficult book, very complex book. It's easy to read, but it's very hard to actually get to the subtle meaning of what is going on. The author is more subtle than we have taken him to be. We have interpreted this book in a very elementary way, right? If you're familiar with the Christian or some Jewish interpretations, it's very elementary. And when you really read the text, you notice that the author is much more subtle. So for those of us who've interpreted the book, if you're familiar with it, you know, oh, you know, if I'm faithful to God through my suffering, God will reward me. That is not the meaning of the book of Job. I'll tell you straight up. That is not what the author intended, right? So it's a difficult book. It's a subtle book. And it's really about one man who, it's a story, it's a fable, about a man who was very pious. And all of a sudden, God kind of began to pick on him, or allow the devil to pick on him. And this man went through phase after phase of tremendous suffering. And in the end, he just has a nervous breakdown. And the book is basically him talking through or screaming out what he thinks about the situation, right? So, and in the end, it's interesting. God responds in a very interesting way. So it's very, very ancient text, very powerful text, very complex text. It's one of the most difficult texts we will do in the class, actually. So don't be fooled. So that's the first text. Then we'll travel. So just so you know, we'll be traveling in space and in time in this class, right? We'll travel in space. We will be studying a very broad variety of authors from different languages, cultures, countries, epochs, and also in time, right? We'll be starting in 3000 BC and we will end in 21st century, right? So anyways, traveling in space and time. After the book of Job, we're going to go to
Rumi.
not yet. Maimonides, who is in Spain. This is under Muslim rule, right? This is when Spain was Muslim during the golden age of Islam. And you had a town called Cordoba, which I hope all of you will explore one day. It's very beautiful. And in that town, you had Maimonides, who was a Jew, but who philosophized in Arabic, right? All of his books, the original is in Arabic. So he's an Arab Jew, right? And he has written a very interesting text on suffering, where he actually, his idea is that we have the capacity through reason to rise above our sufferings, to do something about our sufferings. We don't have to remain trapped. If we cleanse our reason or consolidate our reason, we can develop the capacity to rise above our suffering. And so he's going to show us how, right? Because most of us, we're in suffering, we just sink, right? So the techniques he will give us to help us rise above and elevate above the suffering are going to be very, very useful. So that's Maimonides. Then we're still during the golden age of Islam, a few centuries later with Rumi. This time he's a Muslim. He's a Sufi poet who has written amazing poetry. Usually poetry, love poems, he has written between him and God, right? And he has also beautiful selections on suffering. He has also thought deeply about suffering. And we're going to see that for him, suffering is actually a gift from God. That if we learn how to embrace it and receive it gratefully, we can become transformed by our suffering. So it's a very, very nice approach also to suffering. Then we shall go then finally to, well, not finally, next. We'll travel to the 19th century Germany. This is Nietzsche. And here we see someone who has not digested his suffering, right? Nietzsche is someone who really, through his suffering, became extremely critical and resentful with regards to Christianity, which he feels is having a very superficial escapist approach towards suffering, right? The main criticism of Nietzsche is that Christianity and religion in general tells us it's okay if you suffer, what matters is the afterlife. And Nietzsche is like, that's a cop-out. I'm not interested in the afterlife. I want to know how to live here and now. Why are we always talking about an afterlife and ignoring this life? And so he's going to say something extremely interesting about suffering, which has to do with the ability to really face our suffering with dignity and nobility, rather than continuously try to evade it through fictional stories about an afterlife, right, according to him. So that will be Nietzsche. So that book will be very interesting. And very humorous also. He has quite a sense of humor. So I would suggest before you read him, you have about a few weeks, you need to develop a sense of humor. Otherwise, you're not going to like him at all. So if you have that sense of humor well developed, you will enjoy him very well, even if he will be, pushing your buttons. Okay, so that's Nietzsche, the twilight of the idols. Then we will get into some difficult stuff. I mean, everything is pretty challenging, but when we get into the 21st century, this is when things get very, very complex and the writing gets very dense also. But that's not a problem for us. We will still enjoy it. So we will then study Gabriel Marcel. So the last three are French. So the first one is Gabriel Marcel's ontological mystery. And Gabriel Marcel, I chose him specifically because in my view, he presents the best answer to Nietzsche. I mean, Nietzsche is so fascinating and his criticism is so powerful that it's sad to just leave him there. We need to begin to respond to what he's saying. And I think Gabriel Marcel does an excellent job at responding to Nietzsche in a way that Nietzsche actually would be sensitive to. So we're going to look at that. And then we'll enter the post-Holocaust thinkers. So this is after the Holocaust. This is really, now we're dealing with some very dark stuff. The question being, right, if this is a massive question, if God is who we think he is, how could this happen, right? And this is way more than just personal drama. This is collective drama, right, of the Jewish people. If you're familiar, the Holocaust was the event where 6 million Jews were genocided, right, by the Nazis. And so people, Jewish thinkers emerged, Jewish and Christian thinkers emerged from this trauma, and they're just, wow, how could this happen, right? I mean, we get it that we have to suffer for God, but this is just, you know, the death of children, the massacre of the elderly, this is too much, right? And so there's really a very profound, serious question of where was God during the Holocaust, right? And we're gonna answer this in two ways. We're gonna look at Emmanuel Levinas in his book, in his essay, Enigma and Phenomenon. Emmanuel Levinas is himself a Holocaust survivor, and he has deeply thought through this question. And we will see with Levinas that the only way to answer the question, where was God, is to profoundly redefine who God is. And that's what he does. And you'll be surprised how he does that. You cannot think of God as powerful, loving, protecting us, and still have the Holocaust, right? So he actually has to rethink who God is in order to reconcile himself with God. So it's going to be very interesting to see this, how he does this. And then the last one, our woman, right, Simone Weil, also writing during World War II, not so much hit by the Holocaust as Levinas, because she's actually converted to Christianity, but also thinking about the absence of God, the eclipse of God, and how to connect to God. And, you know, in a context like World War II, where everything has turned very dark. And she's going to talk about, she's going to say something interesting in the sense that the reason some of us cannot hear God is not that God is not speaking, is that we are not on the right frequency. And we're going to talk about how to get on this frequency, how to get aligned so that we can hear better, right, the voice of God. So anyways, that's the plan. That's our itinerary. Any questions on the itinerary that we're going to take?
You mentioned the 21st century, but many of these you mentioned, some of these you mentioned were the 20th. So did you mean 20th or 21st?
Sorry, 20th.
Yes.
There's no 21st century.
Some of you, they're not
it's
alive.
you guys, the 21st century.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
no,
you,
20th,
too,
yeah.
You know?
Thank you, 20th. Yeah, I'm getting used to saying 21st. Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Now, a quick, I just want to say, before we get into the syllabus itself, I want to talk about buying the books and why it's important to buy the books. So yes, I would like you to buy the actual books, you know, books.
Oh, okay.
Does that ring
I
a
have them
bell?
on my phone right now, and I ask.
Yes, you don't want that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You want to get the actual book, and I'm going to try and convince you.
Okay.
So here's my twofold argument. So first of all, the books are here so that you can. The books are really, how shall I put it? They're your companions on this journey, right? The books are really what will accompany you on this class. They are the actual embodiment of these philosophers, right? We don't have them in flesh and blood, but we have the book. And the book is all we have left of the flesh and blood existence of these philosophers. So the books are really there. I want the books to be palpable and concrete, and you know, that's something you can touch, because I want you to feel the presence of that author, right? I don't want to sound, you know, like a psychic right now, but the book actually is very different. The object book, right, is very different from any other objects, because the book is the only object in the world that has a soul, right? There is an actual spirit sitting in that book that when you open, you can access, right? And so I want you to have that with you. This doesn't work so much on a Kindle or when you have a kind of a transcript, right? You know, it doesn't contain it well. The spirit dies in the Kindle. Right? So if you're kind of like, I know this is sounding a bit new agey, but I really feel books really have, you know, they have a soul, and you want to be able to carry this with you as a companion on this journey and beyond, right? That's why I tell you all, keep those books, right? So you want to be able to have this on your shelf. You want to be surrounded by books in your life so that you can feel like you're surrounded by happy powers, right? By angelic powers, right? Books will really change the energy of your home, right? So that's the first reason. I want you to, these are your companions, and I want you to actually have the experience of touching, smelling, feeling this very special object, which contains the very soul of the author. Now, here's the other reason I give, which is a little more mundane. So for this, I want you to imagine that you're dating somebody, and tonight's the night, right? You've dated for a few weeks, and now tonight's you're feeling it, right? And so tonight's the night you're going to invite them into your apartment, and you know, who knows what's going to happen. And so here you are cooking something amazing, right? And by the way, both guys and girls, you guys should all learn to cook one dish. Go to your grandma, right? There's nothing sexier than a guy who can cook well some dinner, right? Just seeing that guy in the kitchen, I just want to think, right? So, so remember, I come from the country of love, right? I'm from France, and all the men in my country know how to cook.
Yeah.
Because they know how to make love. It goes together.
Americans
right?
just love something.
So please learn to make a dish. Anyways, going back to that date night, right? Where tonight's the night and you're cooking something. And then your date comes in, and if they're like me, they will begin to scan the apartment to get a feel who you are, right? Because they seen you, out here in the library, it doesn't say much, right? So they're peeking in the bedroom, is that person clean, right? They're looking in the bathroom, they're looking, and then all of a sudden they see your 7 little books on the shelf. Now imagine what they will think about you when they see Job, Rumi, Maimonides, Levinas. I mean, they're like, oh my God, right? Not only are they beautiful or handsome, but they have a soul, they have a spirit, they have a mind. Oh, now I really want this person. So you had them, right, with maybe 50% with the food. The other 50% is when they see these books, and at that point, it's over. You have them. No more hesitation, right? So these books can really enhance your dating life, right? And you can actually share these books and have decent conversations with your partners and get very deep together. That's how you create lasting relationships, by having deep conversations. I am helping you, right? So please buy the books. Have I convinced you? Hopefully, yes. Yes, question.
What if you want to annotate on it?
Exactly. That's why you buy the book, so you can annotate.
But there's not a lot of space on the actual copy.
Oh no, you can annotate. Watch. I usually have a book with me and I didn't bring. Sorry, but yeah, I am all over the book. Like you can in the margins, you can annotate in the back. Oh my goodness, if you turn in the back of the book, the 5 blank pages, full. So yes, you can annotate. Don't worry. Any other questions on the books? Yes.
You have to bring them to class.
You bring only one. Right, we do one at a time. So only bring, yes, otherwise no. You're not like me with my big suitcase. So you bring only one, and yes, you'll need it in class to be able to underline and follow, right?
So if you order it now, but it takes a while to deliver, it might,
Yeah, I have an answer to that. Yes, so order now, and what probably will come too late is the Book of Job, but that's okay, because you can find the Book of Job in any Bible. And you can go anywhere and find a Bible, right? Go to your grandma, it's a Bible sitting there. Or you can find, this one I'll allow online. You can type the Book of Job and just print it out. That one, the first book I allow because in case it comes late, right? But you'll be a little lost with the pages, but it's on you. Okay. And I saw another question here between the two of you. No? Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I actually think you're completely right about books having souls. I used to have a very utilitarian approach to books. One to just save space. So they're all in my file system. There's no space, but in reality, there's a psychological and spiritual environment to your home, and the objects in your home contribute to that ecosystem. And so,
it's a very important object to have in your home is a book, because it does change. It shifts the energy of your home, right? So you want it creates good feng shui, right? Books. And yeah, I mean, there's room for Kindle. Like I'm in a phase of Harry Potter, and I just can't stop. And finally, I'm doing it, right? I'm reading those books, and I'm not gonna carry these big chunks everywhere I go. So I have that one on my Kindle, right? Books like that you can have on your Kindle, but deep philosophical books that will contribute to your life, you want to have the actual thing, right? You don't want to miss out on that. Okay. So yes, please get the actual books, and if you don't have it in time, find the Bible or find the Book of Job. Okay, now before we continue, I want to do just a short initiation to reading philosophy, because otherwise you are going to die in this class. So, so first of all, I want to talk about the difference between reading philosophy and reading anything else. So when you read, for example, I don't know, history or geography or science, usually what you read, you understand. I mean, if you concentrate enough, right? I mean, the sentence is written and you're like, oh yeah, I see what that is. In philosophy, it's not going to happen that way, right? You're going to read a sentence and you'll be like, what? And then you'll read it again and it'll be, no, I still don't get it. And then you'll continue thinking it might help and it gets worse, right? So, and you'll be pages and pages and you will have understood nothing, right? This is the case, it will be the case with Marcel, Levinas, when we get later. So this is why I'm doing this initiation, so you don't panic, right? But first of all, I want to tell you why philosophers write in this way, right? And then you will understand that they're not trying to be elitist, they're not trying to be, you know, snobs. There's a reason they write like this. And this has to do with the fact that we live in two worlds, according to philosophers, right? According to scientists, we only live in one world, right?
Well, some scientists.
Some scientists, yeah, you're right, not all. Let me not put them all in the same ignorant bunch, right? There's two worlds, right? There's a material realm, but there's also a deeper realm, which philosophers talk about, and they call it different names, right? But we will call it here the spiritual realm, right? We are not just material beings, we're also spiritual beings. We also have a connection with the metaphysical realm. There's the physical realm, and then the metaphysical. Meta means beyond, right? And a lot of us have already had some experience, right? If you believe in God, you're connected. If you believe in angels, or if you believe in love, right? Or if you believe in higher power or a higher energy, right? This is that realm that we are all more or less connected to, that we have more or less the intuition of, not so developed, some of us, others more, right? But we all know it's something there, right? But the problem with that realm is that it's invisible, it's hidden, it's mysterious, and it doesn't want to be spoken of, right? It's hiding on purpose. And so philosophers are doing the absolute impossible task of exploring that world and trying to tell you about it. It's like having an NDE, right, near-death experience, and then trying to tell you what you can't, right? You cannot describe that dimension, because that dimension is on purpose hidden from us. There is a reason, right? This is a dimension which is mysterious, which is profound. And so here you are as a philosopher, you've experienced, you've had glimpses of this dimension. And now it's like coming back from the dead, trying to tell you something about it with words that are very limited to describe that dimension, right? I mean, try telling someone about God who doesn't believe in God. I mean, you can't. I can't put it into words. They look at me like, what? What's wrong with you? You're crazy, right? So this is the difficulty of philosophers, is to speak something which wants to remain unspeakable. And so as they're struggling to describe what they have sensed or intuited or experienced, the words are not good enough. And so they struggle with the language. And when we read them, we struggle with them, right? This is the problem, because they're not talking about what's physical. It's easy to talk about physical things. I can tell you the bottle is on the table. And everybody's like, yeah, that makes sense. Here it is, right? But if I tell you God is, God is infinite, you'd be like, what does that even look like, right? So it's very hard to use language, which is usually used to describe objects of the physical realm, to talk about something like that, to talk about a world which doesn't want to be spoken about, right? So philosophers are really struggling to express this inexpressible through a language which is limited, and that's why it becomes so difficult to read them, because they are themselves struggling to speak, right? So they're struggling too. Don't think they're sitting there being all high and lofty and just, writing this, and they, right? They're sweating and blood as they're writing this, right? So and we also end up struggling when we read it, because it is difficult to access this dimension. It's not an obvious dimension. It's a dimension that requires a certain amount of grit to enter, right? So that's why it's so difficult. So here, however, I want you to really be able to enter these readings, to enter these books, to enter these spirit objects, right? And so I'm going to initiate you in 4 steps, how to read philosophy. So number one, everybody needs a pencil. Why? Why do you need a pencil?
And also a pen.
Or pen is not so good, but pencil better.
Okay.
Writing utensils.
Well, there's psychological component to using your hands. It flows better when you're typing. It's kind of disjointed.
That's true.
Kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, and you're, like you say, you're underlining, right? You're annotating, you're asking questions, you're putting smiley faces, exclamation points, right? This is the only way to read philosophy that I know of, right? If I don't do this, I read and I finish and I'm like, what just happened, right? So this is like, you want to underline the passages you understand, the few passages you will understand, you underline, and then maybe some passages that intrigue you, right? And by the time you're done doing that, you'll actually be like, oh, I got a little bit out of this. I kind of get you won't get completely, but you'll feel a little more comfortable in the reading, right? So very important. The pencil really helps you carve out moments of meaning in the text, which otherwise would feel like blank, right? So use your pencils when you're reading. Another reason to buy the actual book. Underline, circle, exclamation points, smiley faces, write the comments in the back in the last 4 pages in the preface, right? And that's really the first way to read philosophy. What's interesting about philosophy is that it's like a lover, right? It won't reveal itself to you unless it senses that you are searching, that you are really into them, right? So the writing and scribbling is you really showing, I'm into this, I'm grappling with this, I want to know. Just this attitude can open up the text for you. The text will not open up to the indifferent gaze. You need to be engaged for the text to begin to reveal itself to you, right? So this is the first point of engagement. Okay, number 2. This one you're gonna find crazy. This is very important requirement. When you read these texts, I want you to enjoy yourself. So let me give you an example. I want you to take the best moment of the week. I don't know, maybe Sunday morning when everyone is sleeping and you had a good night's sleep, you didn't go out, and you make some, I don't know, chai tea, and like your cat is there and it's quiet, and you're like, now I'm going to read my mind. Take my mind. You take your time and you're enjoying this, and this is the best moment of your week, right? That's how I want you to read. Now, what I mean is, doesn't mean, what should be clear is I'm not expecting you to understand the text, because your enjoyment will go out the window the minute you try to understand the text. Don't. Just read it. I will explain the text to you. Right? But for now, do not make, I don't want to see a single effort, a single brain cell should be making a single effort when you're reading. You should just be absorbing. Oh, this is interesting. He said this. I don't understand it. How wonderful. Right? And you continue, you're turning the pages. I get nothing, but this is so interesting and poetic. Right? So I want you to just enjoy the feeling of being in the presence of this great mind. Don't try to understand. You can't. Right? Maybe a few glimpses you will get, right? But don't try to, right?
Provocative piece of advice. I've never heard that.
Yes, I can imagine. Yes, because normally when you read,
you're supposed to.
Yeah,
use your brain cells.
Exactly. No, not for. You can just read. I mean, you can kind of like, you know, be intrigued and curious and be like, I wonder what this means. But don't be stressed like I have to know what this means. No, you just have to enjoy it, experience it, read it. Page after page is not understandable, and you're like, I'm enjoying this moment of not understanding. It's fun, right? Never you will have a class where you are told enjoy the moment of not understanding, right?
I've never had a professor like you.
I can imagine, yes. Very good. So that's it. Now, I am so serious about this that if you're a slow reader, I actually prefer that you read less and enjoy it than to force yourself to read the whole assignment. So if you're a slow reader and you start to get frustrated and angry and you know, discouraged, stop. Just do 1 page, enjoy it, do the assignment, which I'll tell you about on that, and we call it a day. Right now, if you're a fast reader, you have no excuse, you should read the whole book, right? So that's very important. So, so that's the second point, very, very important. I want you to really enjoy these moments with your books, right? The intelligence really opens only in a state of enjoyment. If you don't enjoy a class, guess what grade you get? Not so good, right? Anytime you don't enjoy a class, I mean, some of us, we can get over it and we can still get an A, but most of us, it's a low A, right? It's not a great A, what we could have done if we were enthusiastic about it. So I want you to be enthusiastic about it. Okay, third one. This one is very important. Read with a sense of urgency. What do I mean by that? So in this class, I've really conceived it so that it connects to your lives, right? This is one of the rare classes in college which you will actually have an impact or a connection to what you're going through on a daily basis, right? All of us go through suffering, and most of us are wondering why, right? This class can bring you at any moment the answer you were looking for, the missing piece of the puzzle, the piece you were yearning for. At any moment, you can receive something very powerful that can really help you in your journey of life. And so to read with urgency is to read knowing that at any moment, I might turn this page and boom, I might have an epiphany. about my life, about my situation, why I'm suffering, how to get out of it, right? So you are really in the class during the lectures, during the readings, during the group discussions, constantly waiting, attentive for that revelation, for this piece of the puzzle that was missing to enter your life so that you can really have a breakthrough, right? The goal of the class is for every single one of you at one point to have a breakthrough with regards to your journey, to your life journey, and perhaps what you're going through right now. So reading with urgency and listening with urgency is always being deeply attentive. Maybe now, maybe today I will get what I'm needing right now in this moment as I am going through this, right? Okay, last thing. Reading together, that's the last one. Very important to do philosophy together. There are 3 things we should never do alone. Alcohol, drugs, and philosophy, right? If you catch yourself drinking in the morning by yourself, not good. I'm just letting you know, right? If you're gonna try that new drug, yes, fine. Do it with someone who will keep you from jumping out the window when you have that reaction.
Exactly.
Yes,
So
that
true.
you did not anticipate, right? So, and philosophy is the same. Never try to find wisdom alone. Never think you are alone, right? Because alone, you will just go over the precipice and die, right? You always want to philosophize together. You always want to be open to what other people have to say when it comes to finding wisdom. You can never find wisdom alone. You need in fact, in the Hebrew Bible, the organ of intelligence, of wisdom, is the ears, right? If you have a developed ear, you are considered wise in the ancient Near Eastern literature. It's the ear, it's not the heart or the brain, is the ear. That is the seat of wisdom. So really understanding that in life, that's why we do 7 authors, so you can get a variety of approaches, and we will have group discussions so you can also talk together. It's very important to search and to journey together, and to find very quickly a mentor, to find somebody that can guide you, someone who knows what they're doing, right? It's so important to be on the lookout for mentors, for people who have gone on the path before and asking them questions, right? In order to find your way. Don't try to do it by yourself, right? It'll take longer. Okay, so that's the initiation. Hopefully you're good. And if you do these 4 steps, you will enjoy greatly the readings and the class in general. Any questions on the initiation? Okay, quick question that I forgot to ask before. Any Sikh students in the class? Sikh students?
Like C-I-K-H?
S-E-E-K.
S-E-E-K. Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3, that's it? 4, that's it? Okay, come after class, okay? All of you, all right. Good, all right, let's go into the logistics. Attendance. Do not miss these Thursday lectures.
I won't.
Especially since you'll see there's some participation points you might miss if you miss the lectures. All right, this is the assignment you will have every single week when we meet, every time. It's called the reading assignment. Reading assignment is very simple. 1 page, 4 paragraphs, single spaced. 1 page, 4 paragraphs, single spaced. The first 2 paragraphs are 2 questions that you have about the text. So this reading assignment is kind of you really beginning to grapple with the text. So you're reading and you're stumbling on a passage you don't understand. Tell me about it, right? Oh, I don't understand this. What does he mean? What does she mean? And then try to answer it. Begin to use not your left brain, but your right brain. Philosophy is right brain. Use your imagination. What you feel might be the meaning of this, right? And begin to tell me how maybe you could get out of it. So that's 2 questions like that. And then 2 criticisms. Last 2 paragraphs are 2 criticisms. So here you understand, but you disagree, or you're uncomfortable here. You're uncomfortable with the way the author is writing, uncomfortable with what they are saying, and you tell me about it. So this is you kind of beginning to wrestle with the text. I want to see a little bit what your reactions. And that assignment is due before class, right before class. You need to drag it, right, into the folder on the drive. And then it has to be on time, right? I don't count any late assignments. So if you miss that one, it just falls down the drain, right? It's only 1 point, so it's not a big deal, but don't miss too many of those. So yeah, that's the first assignment. Any questions on this assignment?
So we're allowed to exceed it slightly.
Yeah, of
a
course.
bit more than 1 page,
Yeah,
4 paragraphs. But it has to involve 2 questions and 2 critiques. But if you have any other observations,
Yeah,
feel
do
free
say what
to
you
do
want.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. You can say what you want as long as I see questions and critiques. Right. Okay. All right. The audio question. This one is the one that everyone fails, so I'm going to be emphasizing this a little bit. And you fail not because you're not because it's too hard, but because you're all not trying usually. So, audio question is this: before every new author. So this is pretty much every 2 weeks, right? Before every new author, you're going to listen to a recorded lecture from that I've done in the past, where I introduce the author. Okay, so for example, for the one we're going to study, Job, by next time, you should have listened to the introduction to Job, which I will put on our playlist. Once you've listened to the whole recording, not just the beginning, the whole thing, you will answer what is called the audio question here on your syllabus, right? You have 7 at the bottom here. You answer that question based on the lecture. Take it very seriously. It's almost like a test question, right? So you want to really, you can be wrong on this, right? Or you can be missing information on this. So listen carefully to the whole video and then give me a half-page, single-spaced, well documented, which will answer that question. Yeah, so that's the and this is due, right? Also at the beginning of class when we start, each time we start a new book. So you have 2 regular assignments. You have the reading assignment every time we meet, and you have the audio question maybe every 2 weeks, each time we start a new author. Any questions on the audio question?
So students didn't do well because they forgot about it, or
Nah, they don't listen to the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Like I can tell, it's like, really? Just got the first point here. So yeah, listen to the whole thing, right? And also,
So the submissions are written. We're not providing our own audio answers. We're
No.
writing.
Yeah, you're writing them and
Yes.
putting them in the folder.
Yes.
Yeah, so in the Google Drive, you'll have a folder called reading assignments. You'll have a folder called audio questions, and you put them here. Also, I do not accept late audio. So make sure, because then it's pointless. Don't listen to it after we get in the text. It's meant to be listened to before so that you can navigate the text, right? So yes.
Can audio questions be submitted as like a physical paper, or does it only have to be online?
Yeah, do it online. It's easier. No, you're gonna mess with my head. Is that a problem?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I was going to ask, they're both online, right?
What?
They're both submitted online? So
Exactly. Both are in the same, same tab, assignments and assignments and grades. You go and you find the folder, audio question, the folder, reading assignment. You're saving all these, right? And then you're just dragging the PDF. I need the PDF of this, right?
I have one more question there. So for the next class, we have one audio question for the
Yes.
book of Job.
And a reading assignment.
So that's at the end? At the end of the book, we do the reading assignment?
No, each time you have a reading, so before, so you will have, so for example, next time you have to read for February 10, the book of Job 5 to 75. On that day, before class, you hand in the reading assignment. So you have read that before. And don't worry, I know it gets tricky with all the assignments. Every day after class, I sit here and I write out your homework for the week. So you'll have the list of things to do, because I know it gets confusing. Yes?
The audio is going to be available as soon as possible?
Yeah, I'm gonna, as soon as I put this lecture online, I add all the audios.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to have one lecture to create a playlist. So anything else? Any other questions? Okay, group discussions. So this is every time we meet, 20 minutes as we start, right? You will get into groups, always the same group. So hopefully you like the people you're with. If you hate them, tell me, I'll switch you, right? So you're with about 4 people, you're 4 of you. And I want you to basically in that group discussion, share your reading assignments. So you should have a copy with you of the reading assignment, either on your phone or in your head. And you're really going over my questions, my critiques, and I'm expecting the group to respond to you. Don't just sit there, right? Respond and be like, oh, you didn't understand that? I did, here's what it means, and so forth, right? Oh, you don't like that? Oh, I thought it was nice, and here's why. It's really respond to each other, disagree, fight, right? This is what I want to see in the group. You're sharing, you're beginning to wrestle now, not just you and the text, but together you're wrestling over the text, right? So this is also very good prep work to I'm having several layers, right? You have the alone and then with the group, and then the lecture comes and really wraps everything together, right? Good. So this assignment, you only get credit if you are on time. So if you wander in late, I won't hold it against you. I'll smile at you, but you've just lost the point, right? So just go and don't tell me what happened. Don't tell me your whole family died in the last hurricane, right? It's I'll feel sorry for you. I'll commiserate, but you still lose the point, right? So just go and join your group, and it's cool. It's just a point. And again, you're seeing several points that are potentially can be lost. What I do at the end of the semester, because I know sometimes you will be held up at the gate or you'll get COVID or whatever, I will give everyone 2 extra points to cover emergencies, right? So if one time you're late, and even if it's justified, right, you're still losing the point, but at the end of the semester, that bonus point is coming in to cover that. So you know you're covered for 2 moments of crisis, right? So be careful. I mean, I made it worth less. Usually these things are worth 2 points, but because of the COVID situation, and I know some of you will be quarantined or sick or whatever, then I make it so you don't lose too much when you lose. But you lose, right? You still lose. Okay, any questions on the group discussions? 2 points at the end. This is worth 1 point, the group discussion, right?
No, the bonus and just wrote it on the syllabus. You only wrote 1 point.
No, that's additional actually, because I couldn't make the 100.
Oh, just a bonus. Right.
This is just like, this is nothing. I couldn't, it didn't add up, the grades.
Okay.
It's stupid. It didn't add up, so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just put a point, random point that everybody's getting. No, this is in addition to that point. Okay. Yeah, good question. Okay, the tests. Tests are after every, I think we have one after Job just to get you, just so I can catch you before you go too far into iniquity. So, but usually it's after every two authors, right? So the test is take home. It's wonderful. I mean, this is really a cruise. It's take home, and I give you the questions ahead of time right here, right? So you have all the questions right here. So you can actually start your test as soon as we're done with the unit, right? So that you don't have too much to do at the end. You can already, once we finish, for example, Maimonides, you can already do the question, even though the test is coming after Rumi, right? So here's the key to being successful in the test. This is very important. The key is 2 things. 1, you're taking copious notes during class. Everything coming out of my mouth is on your paper. So basically you're writing the whole time. That's the sign you're doing good. You're writing or typing the whole time. This is the sign you're taking enough notes, right? So this is, I'm aware this is not American style teaching, this is European style teaching. Welcome to France, right? This is how they talk and we write. So it's pretty, I go fast, right? So in the beginning, it'll be a little hard to keep up, but eventually you'll develop the muscle and you'll get pretty good. By the second test, people are really doing good. First test usually is a catastrophe. I'm just letting you know, because people it's a new system, but then people always get the hang of it and they start to do very well. So really get used to, from the start, to taking as many notes as possible, getting all the details, because that is what is going in the test. The test is very simple. You have to be a little stupid to do well. Don't think too hard. Take the lecture, put it in the answer, okay? That's how it is. When it says, for example, did God answer Job? If so, how? We talk about that. Basically, we lecture. I do a whole hour on that. You take that hour, you put it in your answer, right? The more copious, developed your test answers, the higher your grade, right? Yes.
Will there ever be an open book test?
It is open book. Open book, open notes. You're by yourself at home with all your notes and books, right? So you have really also, yes, you have your notes and they're there, open. And you have your books, right? Yes.
So how exactly are you supposed to be formatting these responses?
The test, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so very good question. So the test, each answer, you have 2 questions, right? So each question you answer in 1 whole page, at least single space. So at least, because if you want to do more, it's better, but 1 at least is good. 1 page, single space per question, total of 2 pages, single space, and it's an essay, right? Essay.
Well, it's done in class on paper.
Not in class, you're at
okay.
home. It's due on,
Okay.
if you can see, hopefully I put it due on Saturday night usually.
Oh, okay.
Right, all your tests are due Saturday night, so you have
Okay.
a few days, and you have, of course, you can start early, right, working on
Yeah.
it as soon as we finish a unit. So, okay, the second thing that will ensure you have a good test is that you have good supportive quotes. which means that you bring your book in class, and anytime I'm reading a quote in that book, you are underlining because you know that quote will be on the test, right? Anything you're saying, Job says this, yes, but where, right? So you have, and you don't need to look for more quotes, just use the quotes we do in class, nothing more, right? So whenever I'm reading a quote, you know this is important, you're underlining, and you're saving it, and when you prepare for the test, here you have your quote that goes along with what I'm saying, right? That's the two things, good notes and good quotes. That's the way you'll get really good on the tests. Any questions on the test?
So it seems a distinction between these test questions and the other kinds of assignments is that to do well on those test questions, they're mainly regurgitations of what you say and do, and so
Yeah, exactly.
if we might get tempted to get a bit too creative, and that could be
Don't get creative. On the test,
Yeah.
do not do not start thinking on your own. I want you to think in the reading assignments, right? And I want you to think in the essay that we're going to talk about. But in the test, this is just me ensuring you're getting the material, you're getting the culture, you're getting the knowledge from which you can then begin to think, right?
And
So yes, pure regurgitation, shamelessly.
and then in these group discussions, if we actually forgot our book at home, would we get marked up? Because we can just use some other.
You mean during the discussion, the group discussion?
discussions if we forgot it?
No, group discussion, you just share your reading assignment.
Okay.
So you can have it in your head. If you have something to say,
Yes,
I'm cool with
okay.
it.
Yeah, I'll try to get all those physical
I'm
books.
sure you'll have
'cause,
something to say
you know, yeah.
in the group discussion.
Yeah, because I might not have all those books in time.
Yeah.
Try.
No, normally if you start now ordering, you should be good because we have like next week is Job, the week after is Job, so we have almost.
Delivery in NYC is faster than other places, so it might not take too long.
Yeah, we'll see. Yes.
Oh, I'm just kind of moving over my head. So I'm looking into the essay section. So is it like every time we hand in a test, we have to also hand in an essay?
Yes, which I'll tell you now about now. Yes. Okay, the essay. This is the funnest part of the class, hopefully. They took out all the plots. Like, why? Is that a COVID thing? Like,
What, that's
420, 420.
Did you notice how
What?
the clocks are gone?
What's gone?
The clocks. There were clocks.
Clocks?
There was a clock.
Oh, yeah, I've never had a class in this photo.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had a humanities class in
They
years.
took out all the clocks, I noticed, so here I am. Anyways, okay, the essays. This is the funnest part that you'll have. The essay is this. I want you to start to think about your own spiritual journey, where you are and what brought you there, right? In other words, I want you to go back to that moment where you still had questions. Remember in 8th grade when you were talking to your priest and you had important questions and they brushed you off and said, don't ask questions. That's not, a believer doesn't ask questions. Faith has no questions, right? So surely you were at some point blocked and repressed in your questions. I'm pretty sure most of us fall into that category where we had these amazing questions about life and God, and some adults told us that we shouldn't have those questions, or they didn't have the answer, or they gave us a platitude, right, instead of an answer. So this is the class where finally these questions will be addressed completely, fully, any question, right? And so this is the moment I want you to go back to that young teenager or maybe late child, right? Where you had still those questions and you were grappling with these questions of suffering, of faith, of God. And I want you to tell me what brought you now where you are, right? Maybe you're still with your questions, maybe you kept that, or maybe you repressed, or maybe you gave up, or maybe now you're just angry, or maybe now you're depressed, or maybe now you're joyful, you found God, right? Who knows? I don't care. Tell me wherever you are. And then I want you to tell me if there's anything in what we studied which really got your attention, right? That you needed to hear, that really for you was a moment of illumination, of revelation, or maybe frustration. That's fine. You can have a really negative essay if you want, right? I had a student who was so funny. He was telling me, and one day he'll listen to these lectures, I mentioned him each time. He was kind of in a numb phase. He couldn't feel. And so he would begin every essay by saying, I am still comfortably numb, and I have learned nothing, and I'm fine with that. So, you can do that, right? Wherever you are, I'm fine with. If you're numb, if you are learning nothing, if you're angry with what you're reading, or if you're joyful with what you're reading, I want to hear about it. So your journey, or a particular moment of your journey, and how what we are talking about, what we talked about, really caught your interest, really is something that you feel you needed to hear, and I want to hear about it. So it's kind of just like a journal, or you can write a letter to yourself, or you can, whatever, right? And this is 1.5 pages, single spaced. And please start at the top. Don't give me a big like title page and then like write me like tiny paragraph. Whole page and a half, 1.5 pages, single spaced is the essay due on the day of the test. Okay, cool, that's it. Any questions?
And we have multiple essays because we have
Four.
four
I think.
tests. We have four
three.
essays.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. You have you have four, I don't know, four tests? Yeah,
yes.
4 tests with 4 essays. Okay, so y'all can go and seat people, please stay behind, and the rest of you can go. I'll see you next week. Yes.
Oh, I have a question regarding. It's a religious question.
Okay, sure, yeah. Let me just like that. Yes, I'm gonna do that right now.
I'm not in seat, but I have quite a few things to talk to you about.